Could take their seats, please. So good afternoon. Welcome to your Innovation, Grants, Technology, Commerce, and Trade Committee. I'm joined by my colleagues, Council Members Bonin, Krikorian, and Martinez. And we will get started. Mr. Espinosa, are there any general public comment cards?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, general public comment is closed. Unless there is an objection from my colleagues, I'd like to move items number 2 and 3 on consent. Are there any cards on those items?
No, Mr. Chair.
No cards on those items. Any objection to moving 2 and 3 on consent? Seeing no objection, we will move items 2 and 3 on consent. And we will now move to item number 1.
Item number 1 is a report from the Board of Harbor Commissioners relative to the 8th Amendment to the permit with Eagle Marine Services for credit related to the CMA CGM Benjamin Franklin.
Good afternoon, council members. Hi, Mike DiBernardo with the Port of Los Angeles. Yes, this item is in regards to an 8th Amendment that we gave to Eagle Marine Services to entice the bringing of the Benjamin Franklin to the Port of Los Angeles to Pier 300. This represents a $100,000, almost $100,000 investment by the port to attract this business, and we received incremental revenue of $612,000. So it was definitely a benefit of bringing the ship over. CMA, which is the owner of the Benjamin Franklin, actually has ownership at the Port of Long Beach at one of the terminals. So this allowed us to attract this business over to the Port of LA and actually test out its capabilities at a terminal on the Port of Los Angeles side. So it's the second call for the Benjamin Franklin. First call was to APM Terminals. Second call to Eagle Marine Services, which is one of our other terminals at the Port of LA.
Well, certainly it was exciting. It was a lot of excitement when it arrived. I mean, I wasn't there, but just seeing the pictures of such a behemoth coming in
yes.
is pretty neat. I wanted to ask you, there was an article in the Daily Breeze that was questioning whether the incentive payment was necessary, and they noted that the Port of Oakland and Port of Long Beach also were able to receive the Benjamin Franklin without doing an incentive. Could you tell us why on that one, and then obviously it will relate to this one, why you think the payment was necessary, even though the others sort of got to ride our coattails for free?
Yeah, in regards to the Port of Long Beach, as I mentioned, CMA has about 10% ownership in a terminal at the Port of Long Beach. So their incentive is granted through their lease permit with the Port of Long Beach. So with us, it was an ability to track that business over to the Port of LA and test it at the Port of LA for the second call. As I mentioned, first call was at APM Terminals, which was the day after Christmas. Second call at a different terminal, APL. And actually, CMA CGM has just purchased APL, the shipping line, and with that came the terminal Eagle Marine Services. So it was a way for them to test it and see how it works at that terminal, because they're going to be doing future investment within that terminal to allow for the bigger ships to come in the future. So it was a way of attracting them over from the Port of Long Beach. Port of Oakland, the calls that were made there were very small. They did it on the first call, they did it on the second call, and it was just to pick up some of the export cargo that comes out of the Northern California area, which is very important, perishable cargo primarily, to move to Asia. That's typically the last call for ships that come into LA and go north to pick up export cargo and then move out.
Do you think without the incentive we would not have had the first call port?
This particular call, we don't think we would have. It would have went to Long Beach. That is correct.
And then on this one, is Eagle Marine providing an incentive as well? Are they providing?
I'm not sure what they did as far as an incentive to CMA, but the incentive that we're providing goes to Eagle Marine, and it's done in the form of a credit, and then they would pass that on to CMA. So our lease contract is with Eagle Marine Services, and so that's where the amendment is done at.
Right. On the first one, the operator provided a one-time credit as well.
That is correct.
We provided one and they provided one.
Yes.
And on this one, we're providing one. Are they also providing one? Or
at this point, in our board report, we didn't say that they did, so we didn't show that they were doing a credit at this time. They may have done one, but we don't know what that amount was.
So we don't know what that
That's
is.
correct.
Would that be public information that we'd be able to get?
Not from between Eagle Marine and CMA, no.
Colleagues, any additional questions? And just one more thing, just the port's long-term plans for securing ships like the Benjamin Franklin on a long-term basis. Obviously, it's a win-win when we are able to do it, and we're grateful for all the strategies to get us here to this point. What are the next steps in this in terms of once the novelty wears off on the first couple of runs? How do we ensure that we're able to continue?
Well, one of the advantages here is that CMA did purchase APL Eagle Marine, and so with that, we're going to be seeing a lot more of their activities of what they want to do. Definitely, the terminal needs some upgrades in order to handle a ship of that size on a regular basis. So this allowed them to test that and see what they need to invest in that terminal. As far as long-term and attracting other businesses, we'll look at it case by case, determine what we need to do to ensure we attract the business in order to allow us to maintain the number one status with cargo volume at the Port of LA.
All right, well, colleagues, no other questions. I think without objection, I want to approve the CAO and the port recommendations. Seeing no objections, we'll go ahead with that approval. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll move on to item 4.
Item number 4 is a report from the Board of Airport Commissioners relative to the terminal facilities lease and license agreement with Delta Airlines to enable relocation to Terminals 2 and 3 at Los Angeles International Airport.
Welcome.
Hey, Steve Martin, LAWA. The proposed lease that would allow Delta to move to Terminals 2 and 3 from LAWA's point of view has an important element in it, which is the renovation of Terminal 3 and the rebuilding of the what we call the head house, the front end of the terminal, to integrate Terminals 2 and 3 and allow for integration with the Bradley Terminal at a future date. It was a long negotiation with Delta to get to this. We'd looked at it a number of times. An important part of it is that there are over 20 airlines who are in Terminals 2 and 3 today, and we needed a relocation plan for each airline, which we have conceptual agreement on. Those airlines would go to Terminals 5 when Delta leaves, Terminal 6, and the Bradley Terminal for the most part.
I'm assuming, but just to put it out there, have any of the airlines that are being relocated raised any questions, or are all of them good with it?
They are all conceptually good with it, and we need to finish leases and other agreements with those airlines. Most of the airlines, just so you know, particularly the ones who happen to be in Terminal 3, which is a terminal that hasn't been touched for over 50 years in terms of any renovation, view going to Terminal 5 as an upgrade. They're actually going to be in a better situation than they are today. So we're not aware of any airline that's not happy with the proposed outcome.
And then LAWA is going to purchase the terminal improvements once they're complete. How does that process work?
The airport in 2012 reached what's called a rate agreement with all the airlines serving the airport, where the airlines pay for the cost of all the improvements. In this case, rather than giving, as had historically been the case, an airline a 40-year lease to cover the risk of the investments that they make, we actually acquire the investments when they're finished. The cost of the acquisition goes into the rate base paid by all the airlines, so our acquisition cost is actually recovered from all the airlines at the airport. So in any terminal where Southwest or United Airlines, or in this case Delta, makes investments, if we acquire them, all the airlines at the airport pay for that acquisition cost.
And what about interest? There's a certain amount that's paid in interest, and how does that work? What's the rate, and how is that?
In this case, the airline doing the renovations is Delta. They actually carry the entire cost of the capital invested during the construction process. We don't issue the bonds in advance and draw down on a construction fund. They fund it. They are allowed to charge construction interest while they're holding the money before our acquisition. The interest rate is derived from a treasury schedule. And so the lease says we're going to go, on the day the lease is executed, we look up the treasury rate, and that's what applies to the interest cost. It's not their actual interest cost. It's an imputed interest charge based on a treasury schedule.
Based on the treasury schedule, based on the amount that they bond for up front?
It's based on the term of the deal. So we use, I think, the 10-year treasury rate, not the 30-year treasury rate. and it applies to the entire investment.
And is LAWA subject, is there any risks associated with this for LAWA? If so, what are they, or what should we be concerned about?
Well, one of the key parts of this structure where the airlines do the work is when we're renovating terminals, there's a huge amount of operating risk, both lost baggage, contractor problems, everything else. That is all transferred to Delta. So part of the reason we have the airlines do these renovations in certain terminals is because they're better able to manage the operating risk of keeping the airline running, keeping the terminals in service while they're doing the construction. Obviously, we have risk that they don't complete the project. That's our greatest risk. But we don't pay for the improvement unless they complete the project. There are no progress payments. There's no money out the door on our part if they don't complete the project.
So if it's terminated for causes on their end, we're not out.
Right. We only acquire completed assets, and if they're not completed, we don't have any payments exposed.
Colleagues? Mr. Bowman?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to say thank you to LAWA and to Delta for the way this has been done. I mean, this is an extremely important project. It's the kind of stuff I get excited about because it's about improving the passenger experience. And I'm glad to see that this administration at the airport takes that seriously and makes it a priority. This is a huge thing. I mean, Terminal 3 in particular really, really, really needs the work. You know, if Bradley International is our great new front door, Terminal 3 has sort of been the outhouse or the shed in the backyard. It's really good to see this happening. But I want to just note the way in which it was done. I've really appreciated the way that everybody has reached out to the community and done briefings to RSAC, the Neighborhood Council, the Chamber, the Airport Area Advisory Committee. I think that was really, really well done, and I appreciate it. And I also want to say I am very happy to see the relationship that Delta has made with its labor partners in SEIU. I think that has been very helpful to see, and I'm glad to see it. The only lingering concern I have on this is what the traffic impacts are going to be like as this is being done, as LAMP is being done, as everything else is being done. I don't know how you're going to manage all of it. I'm trusting and having faith that you will. It's going to be a little bit like turning water into wine, so the bar is high, but I mean, the task is just gigantic to make sure that traffic is managed well, keeping the airport functioning, and I just want to underscore how significant that challenge is going to be.
Yeah, we've tried to work with Delta. They've rephased the project a series of times working with us to get the most difficult phase out of the way first. We have to get through some environmental approvals to do that, but the idea was to get the most difficult part of it out of the way before our most difficult part of the people mover, for example, starts. And so we actually rework their schedule to try to have them be serial. It means the duration is longer, but the crisis risk is reduced. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate that. Martinez?
Well, shouldn't this move ease the traffic on the south side of the airport? Somewhat between Delta and the rest of the operators?
Well, it probably will balance it a little better. I mean, we are moving the people who are in Terminals 2 and 3 to where Delta vacates, so that will, change things a little bit. I think it probably does actually make for a better operation. Having two airlines on the north side, which is very constrained, the coordination between the two as opposed to the 26 that we have to coordinate with now will make it easier. Certain things we're getting lucky on, that the Alaska Virgin America merger occurs, allows that traffic to smooth out.
Alaska and Virgin?
Alaska and Virgin. And the other thing that happens in this that may make things smoother is American would no longer have a split operation. American Airlines is in Terminal 6 and Terminal 4. There's a very difficult coordination for the passengers.
Had to
Yeah.
get shuttled across the...
So American would move to Terminal 5 on gates adjacent to 4, so that will actually reduce the sort of confusion and traffic problems that we have that go with that. So it should be better.
Yeah, and I concur with Mr. Bonin in terms of the passenger experience. I think it does definitely provide for a facelift. Every time I travel and have to land at another airport. I'm very envious about that passenger experience. So that's very much needed at the airport, and as well as the infrastructure improvements to 2 and 3.
Yes.
Good job.
Thanks.
Any additional questions? Appreciate it. It's good stuff that you're doing here, and I want to move forward and approve the CAO and LAWA recommendations. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 5.
And this is a closed session item?
It's a closed session, but I believe we will have some public comment cards. Do we have any public comment cards?
No, we don't, Mr. Chair.
Did you want to turn one in? I believe we have one public comment card coming.
Can I fill it out afterwards at the same time?
Yes. Yeah. So we're moving to item 5. Before you start, would you please read item 5 into the record, and then we will public comment, and then we will break for closed session.
Well, item number 5 will be a closed session item, and this matter involves California Environmental Quality Act challenges to the certification of the environmental impact report for the LAX Pacific Plan Amendment Study and section of a preferred alternate identified in the EIR for further study.
Great. And we'll start with public comment.
Mr. Chairman, council members, it's great to be in front of you today. I'm so pleased, I can't even begin to tell
You
you.
have 2 minutes, but go ahead and start.
I won't even need that. I just want to let you know that I'm so thrilled that we are now seeing such a sea change in attitude and results with the airport. I can't even begin to describe how happy I am about this. So without going into any details, because obviously you're going to discuss them, I can tell you that the community itself is excited about the prospects here, and it matches what we've been asking for all along. So everybody's on the same page. And I want to thank you, Mike, in front of everybody again for your leadership. That's it.
Great.
It's very
Thank you.
simple.
Great comments, and many of our airport leaders are right here in the room who you know. So are there, last call are there any other public comments for this item? Seeing none, we're going to move to closed session. Will you, City Attorney, announce the closed session appropriately?
The committee will now recess into closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D1 to confer with legal counsel relative to the case entitled Alliance for a Regional Solution to Airport Congestion, RSAC v. City of Los Angeles Superior Court Case Number BS 143086.
All right, now we are officially back in open session because it's on, and now we are officially out of session. Thank you.